The prairie stretched wide and empty beneath the setting sun, its tall grass bending gently in the evening wind like waves on a golden sea. Ethan Walker stood at the edge of his ranch fence, resting his forearms on the worn wood as he watched the sky turn from amber to deep rust. Dusk was his favorite hour. It was the one time of day when the land felt almost gentle. Ethan had lived alone out here for nearly 12 years. No wife. No children. No neighbors close enough to bother him. Just his horses, his cattle, and the quiet that came with knowing no one expected anything from him. Folks in the nearby town of Willow Creek knew his name, but little else. He rode in once a month for supplies, spoke only when necessary, and left before anyone could ask questions. Loneliness, he had learned, was easier than loss. He turned toward the house, a modest wooden structure weathered by time and dust, when he heard it, a sound that didn't belong. Footsteps. Ethan froze. No one came to his ranch unannounced. Not traders. Not travelers. And certainly not at dusk. His hand moved instinctively toward the revolver at his belt as he scanned the yard. Then he saw her. She stood just beyond the gate, hesitating as if unsure whether to step closer. Her dress was faded and dusty, clinging to a body thinned by hunger and exhaustion. A loose shawl hung from her shoulders, barely protecting her from the evening chill. Dark hair spilled messily down her back, and her boots, if they could still be called that, were worn nearly through. She looked young. Too young to be alone out here. When she noticed him watching, she stiffened, then gathered what little strength she had and pushed the gate open with trembling hands. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, her voice hoarse. "I didn't mean to trespass." Ethan stayed where he was, studying her carefully. The West taught men to be cautious. Desperation could be dangerous. "What do you want?" he asked, his tone firm but not unkind. She swallowed, eyes flicking to the house, then back to him. "Food," she said softly. "Just food. I won't stay long. I promise." The way she said it, like she was afraid he'd turn her away before she finished speaking, stirred something uneasy in his chest. He noticed her hands shaking now. Not from fear. From hunger. Ethan exhaled slowly. "You alone?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes, sir." He hesitated only a moment longer before stepping aside and motioning toward the house. "Come on, then." Relief flooded her face so suddenly it nearly brought her to her knees. Inside, the house smelled of coffee, leather, and wood smoke. Ethan set a plate on the table and ladled stew into a bowl, sliding it toward her without ceremony. She sat cautiously, like someone who wasn't used to being invited anywhere. She stared at the food for a moment, as if afraid it might disappear, then began to eat. Slowly at first. Then faster. Too fast. Ethan turned away, pretending to busy himself by the stove, though he watched her from the corner of his eye. She ate like someone who hadn't had a proper meal in days, maybe longer. When she finished, she wiped her mouth quickly, embarrassed. "Thank you," she said. "I'll leave in the morning." Something about the way she said leave made it sound like a habit. Ethan poured her a cup of water. "Where you headed?" She shook her head. "Anywhere but where I came from." That was answer enough. Outside, night settled over the prairie, stars blinking awake one by one. Ethan glanced toward the door, then back at her. "You can sleep in the barn," he said gruffly. "Just for the night." Her eyes widened. "That's more than enough." As she stood, her knees buckled. Ethan moved without thinking, catching her before she hit the floor. She was lighter than she should have been, fragile in his arms. I'm sorry," she whispered. "You ain't going anywhere tonight," he said quietly. And as the wind howled across the open land, Ethan Walker realized that the quiet he had built his life around had just been broken, possibly forever. Morning came softly to the prairie, sunlight spilling across the land like a promise the world didn't always keep. Ethan woke before dawn, as he always did, but today the quiet felt different. Less settled. As if the land itself were holding its breath. He brewed coffee and stepped onto the porch, scanning the yard instinctively. The barn door stood slightly open. She was still here. He told himself it was just for the night. That once she'd eaten and rested, she'd move on. That was how things worked in the West. People passed through. They never stayed. By the time he finished feeding the horses, she emerged from the barn. She'd washed her face and tied her hair back, revealing features that the dust of travel had hidden. She was pretty, more than pretty, but not in a polished way. There was strength in her posture now, even if her body was still weak. "Morning," she said. "Mornin'," he replied. She hesitated. "I can help. If you'll let me." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Help how?" "Anything. Cooking. Cleaning. Mending. I don't want to be a burden." The word burden sat heavy between them. He studied her for a long moment before nodding once. "Breakfast first." Inside, she moved carefully, as if learning the rhythm of the house. She cooked eggs with practiced hands, and when she set the plate in front of him, she smiled faintly, proud, but restrained. They ate mostly in silence. "What's your name?" Ethan asked finally. "Clara," she said. "Clara Hayes." He nodded. "Ethan Walker." She repeated it softly, as if committing it to memory. Later, she insisted on helping with small tasks, sweeping the porch, folding laundry, even brushing one of the calmer horses. Watching her, Ethan felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. The ranch looked different with someone else in it. Warmer. By midday, Clara's steps slowed. She pressed a hand to the fence post, breathing hard. "You should rest," Ethan said. "I'm fine," she insisted, though her face had gone pale. She made it 3 more steps before her knees gave out. Ethan caught her again, this time with a low curse under his breath. "That's it," he said. "You're not leaving today." She tried to protest, but the words dissolved into exhaustion. When she woke later, she found herself in his spare bedroom. Sunlight filtered through the thin curtains. For a moment, panic flared, then she remembered. Ethan sat nearby, hat in his hands. "You been running a long time," he said gently. Clara stared at the ceiling. "Too long." She told him pieces of the truth. Not all of it. Enough to explain the fear, the hunger, the need to disappear. "I didn't plan to stay," she said quietly. "I just needed one meal." Ethan stood, clearing his throat. "You can stay another night." She met his eyes. "Just one?" He nodded. "Just one." That night, they sat by the fire outside, the prairie stretching endlessly around them. No touching. No promises. Just 2 souls sharing warmth against the vastness of the West. And neither of them slept much, because both knew something had already changed. Days passed without either of them naming it. Clara stayed. At first, it was only until her strength returned. Then until the weather cleared. Then until Ethan finished repairing the south fence. Each reason felt practical. Sensible. And completely untrue. She moved through the ranch like she'd always belonged there. By morning, she cooked breakfast while humming softly. By afternoon, she mended torn gloves and brushed the horses, speaking to them as if they understood every word. Even the ranch dogs followed her like she was their own. Ethan watched from a distance, pretending not to notice how the silence no longer pressed so hard on his chest. One afternoon, as the sun beat down and cicadas sang, Clara joined him at the fence line. She handed him a canteen. "You don't have to keep proving your worth," he said. She smiled faintly. "I'm not proving anything. I just like being useful. He nodded, understanding more than she knew. That evening, they rode together across the prairie. The land glowed gold under the lowering sun, wind tugging at Clara's hair. She laughed when her horse picked up speed, the sound bright and unguarded. Ethan hadn't heard laughter like that on his land in years. When they stopped near a small rise, Clara looked out across the endless stretch. "It's beautiful," she said. "Lonely. But beautiful." "Lonely's how it survives," Ethan replied. She glanced at him. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just waiting." The words lingered between them. That night, the fire burned low as they sat close, the chill creeping in. Their shoulders brushed. Neither moved away. "Why do you live out here alone?" she asked softly. Ethan stared into the flames. "Everyone I loved is gone." She reached out, hesitated, then rested her hand near his, not touching. Respecting the space he'd built around himself. "I'm sorry," she said. So was he. For the first time, not just for the past, but for the years he'd spent hiding from the future. They leaned closer. Breath mingled. The moment stretched tight as a drawn bowstring. Then Clara pulled back. "I should go soon," she whispered. Ethan nodded, though the thought hollowed him. Neither slept that night. Because somewhere between the dust and the stars, they both knew, this wasn't just a place to pass through anymore. The prairie healed slowly, just like Ethan. Weeks passed. The fence was rebuilt, the barn repaired, and the bullet wound faded into a thin scar that Clara traced with careful fingers on quiet evenings. Each sunrise brought a little more peace, a little more certainty. The men never returned. Whether fear, law, or the vastness of the West itself had driven them away, Clara never knew. What mattered was that the ranch no longer felt like a hiding place. It felt like a beginning. Clara planted a small garden near the house. She said it was good to put roots in the soil. Ethan didn't argue. He watched her kneel in the dirt, sunlight catching in her hair, and realized the land had already accepted her. One evening, as the sky burned gold and crimson, Ethan led her out to the rise overlooking the prairie. Wind tugged at her skirt, carrying the scent of sage and earth. "I used to think this place was meant to be empty," he said. "Quiet. Unchanging." Clara smiled. Maybe it was just waiting. He took her hands, rough against soft, steady against trembling. "I don't have much to offer. Just land, and work, and my word." She laughed softly. "That's everything." They married that autumn, quietly. No crowd. No church bells. Just the prairie, the horses, and the promise of forever spoken beneath an open sky. Years later, travelers spoke of a ranch where laughter carried on the wind. Where a cowboy and his wife welcomed strangers with warm meals and open hearts. Clara had come for food. She stayed for love. And the prairie remembered them both. The first sign of trouble came with hoofbeats. Ethan heard them long before Clara did, distant, deliberate, carrying across the open land like a warning the prairie itself was trying to give. He stood still, listening, his jaw tightening. "Someone's coming," he said. Clara looked up from the porch, her smile fading. "From town?" Ethan shook his head. "No." By the time the riders appeared over the low ridge, Clara had already gone pale. 2 men. Hard-looking. Their horses were well-fed, their coats clean. Not drifters. Not ranch hands. Clara's hands trembled. "They found me," she whispered. Ethan stepped in front of her without hesitation. "You stay inside." The men dismounted slowly, eyes scanning the ranch like they already owned it. "We're looking for a woman," one of them said. "Belongs to a man back east." Ethan's voice was steady. "Ain't no one here but me." The man smirked. "We heard different." Clara watched through the window, heart pounding. No one had ever stood between her and danger before. Ethan didn't raise his gun. He didn't need to. His stillness said enough. "She came here hungry," he said. "If she's here at all, she's here by choice." The men exchanged glances. After a long moment, they mounted up. "We'll be back," one said. When they rode off, the silence crashed down harder than before. Clara stepped onto the porch, tears in her eyes. "I never meant to bring trouble." Ethan turned to her. "You didn't." "I should leave," she said. "Before they come back." Ethan hesitated, then spoke the truth he hadn't allowed himself to voice. "If you go, you'll be running forever." She looked at him. Really looked. "What if I stay?" she asked. His answer came without thinking. "Then you won't be alone anymore." That night, Clara unpacked the few things she owned. She placed them carefully in the spare room, not like a guest, but like someone choosing a home. Outside, the prairie wind carried away the last of her doubt. She had come for food. But she was staying for something far greater. The riders returned 3 nights later. This time, they didn't bother hiding. Ethan was mending tack in the barn when the dogs began barking, a sharp, frantic sound that sliced through the dark. Clara was inside, washing dishes. She froze when she heard it. Ethan stepped out just as a gunshot cracked the night air. Wood splintered from the fence post beside him. He drew his revolver. Clara rushed to the door. "Ethan! Stay inside," he shouted. The men rode hard into the yard, shouting, firing into the air to scare him. Smoke burned his lungs as he took cover, heart pounding, not with fear for himself, but for Clara. One man dismounted, dragging a torch. "You don't get to keep what ain't yours," he sneered. Before Ethan could stop her, Clara stepped onto the porch. "Leave him alone," she cried. "I'm not going with you." The man laughed. "You don't get to choose." But Clara stood her ground. Ethan fired a warning shot, close enough to make his point. The men hesitated. They hadn't expected resistance, or resolve. Sirens from town echoed faintly in the distance. Someone must have heard the shots. Cursing, the riders retreated into the night. Ethan collapsed against the barn wall, blood soaking his sleeve. Clara ran to him, hands shaking as she pressed cloth to the wound. "Don't you dare leave me," she whispered, tears falling freely now. "I ain't going anywhere," he said, gripping her hand. That night, she stayed by his side, tending him, refusing to sleep. When dawn came, Ethan found her still there. "You should have run," he murmured. She shook her head. "I already did enough running." Their foreheads touched, breath mingling. "I love you," she said. The words landed like a promise. Years had passed since that first night Clara knocked at Ethan's gate. The ranch had grown fuller, not just in livestock and crops, but in laughter, warmth, and quiet moments that filled every corner of their home. Clara moved through the kitchen at dawn, humming softly as she set breakfast on the table. Sunlight streamed through the windows, glinting off the copper pans she had polished the night before. Ethan sat at the table, hat in hand, eyes lingering on her as he always did. He still marveled at how someone who had come seeking only a meal had become the heart of his life. "You brought back wildflowers from the creek," Ethan said, nodding toward the small bouquet Clara had arranged in a tin cup. Clara smiled. "They remind me of that first morning here, when everything seemed impossible." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "Everything's never impossible when we're together." The ranch, once lonely and silent, was alive. Children's laughter echoed as they ran through the tall grass, chasing chickens and rolling in the dust, and even the horses seemed to carry a lighter step. Clara and Ethan watched them, hearts full, the wind carrying their joy across the prairie. One evening, they sat by the fire, the same way they had on that first night together, but now with a warmth deeper than either could have imagined. The stars blinked above, as infinite as the love they shared. No one knocked at the gate that night, and no one needed to. They had built a life together, one founded on kindness, courage, and the quiet certainty that comes from finding your place in the world. Clara had come for food, yes, but she had stayed for a lifetime of love, for a home, and for a story that the prairie itself would remember forever. And as the fire crackled and the wind whispered through the grass, Ethan whispered softly to her, "I wouldn't trade a single moment, not even the quiet ones." Clara leaned her head on his shoulder. "Neither would I." The prairie stretched on endlessly, golden and infinite, holding the echoes of their love for all time.